Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft and Executive Vice President of the Illinois Policy Institute, Kristina Rasmussen, joins us on this edition of Illinois Rising. And Kristina, last week we discussed and we played this back and forth between State Representative Dwight Kay, a Republican from Glen Carbon in Southern Illinois, and Mike Madigan's Majority Leader, State Representative Barbara Flynn Curry from Chicago, in which Dwight Kay wanted to go kind of line item by line item through the budget. It's crazy. Not, just a nutty idea.
We don't do that in Illinois, apparently.
Go line item by line item and ask questions about the line items. What's this spending for? Can you explain it? Because it's just a, kind of a title and an amount. So it could bear more explanation. And Barbara Flynn Curry was having none of it. She just said it's continuing appropriation or it's valuable. And that's all I have to say about it. Ditto. You were the kind of responsible party for identifying that.
Had something to do with that little clip that we got put online.
Well, that exchange has gone viral, and understandably so, because it seems like it's a microcosm of Illinois and why people are so frustrated with the political class in Springfield, because it's a nice illustration of just how little they care about your opinion and your money.
Absolutely. So I was in the gallery at the house when that exchange happened, and it was kind of otherworldly because as I sat up in the gallery, I could tell that people in the room just thought this was a waste of time to go line by line and to ask questions about what's in the budget. But, putting on my normal person hat, I realized that, oh my gosh, this is an exact microcosm of what is wrong with Illinois, the dismissiveness and contempt that they have for taxpayer dollars. So we cut that clip about 6 minutes, put it online at Facebook with the Illinois Policy Institute page, has more than 1.2 million views. And we can see stats of how long people keep watching videos for. People are watching it through all the way to the end because they just cannot believe what they're hearing and seeing. It's disgusting, quite frankly.
And you've had a number of media outlets now weigh in on this because of that exchange that kind of crystallizes the problem with the political culture in Springfield and in Illinois more generally. The Belleville News Democrat opined, the Chicago Tribune has opined. Well, kind of all saying the same thing, but the question is it getting through? Is the message getting through to the extent that people will say, okay, it's time to turn these people out and bring in some new people?
I think so, particularly when you compound the fact that this little exchange went hand in hand with a budget that was never delivered, right? So even as they went through this document, the House passed it, the Senate did not, and so there's nothing on the governor's desk. So you pair this contemptive attitude along with the fact that we don't have a budget, and people are starting to get very frustrated.
There's a survey out this week, Capital Facts, kind of an insider newsletter commissioned a poll with We Ask America, and it finds that by a fairly substantial margin, 21 points, most Illinoisans are blaming House Speaker Mike Madigan for the lack of a state budget and not Governor Rauner. That's an encouraging sign in a sense. It's also perhaps a warning sign, though, for the governor to not necessarily make this binary, but it's not me versus Madigan. It's the idea of spending money we don't have versus living within our means and starting to bring Illinois back. And it seems like that's a narrative that he's trying to offer up, and perhaps that's working more so than the mano-a-mano narrative that the Chicago and Springfield press corps want to spin.
Yeah, I think people understand that, different parts of government have different roles, and it's the fundamental job of the legislature to send a budget over to the governor, right? And most people, if you don't do your job, you get fired. And so you see people saying, okay, the General Assembly, you had one job to do this spring, pass a budget, and they failed to do that. So it's really about your responsibilities that go along with your role in government, and that's why people are so upset.
Well, and it's also a bit of, let's see, who's been there forever and who's been there for 15 months. And I know the governor is the governor, and that's the top of the food chain. And there are certain responsibilities that are attended to the executive, different than even a legislative leader, even the longest serving House Speaker in the history of America at the state level, and Mike Madigan. But I think they still, even though people may be frustrated that there hasn't been as much progress as they hope, they still understand that Rauner is a reformer. And maybe they don't agree with every tactical decision he makes, but they agree with him from a dispositional perspective, and they know what Mike Madigan is, and they know he's essentially kind of the quintessential example of the problem.
Yeah, and so the session ended at the end of May, and Mike Madigan said, okay, we're going to keep talking about the budget. In fact, every Wednesday, we're going to call a special session in Springfield to keep this process moving. Well, we're now 2 Wednesdays in, and he's canceled both of these sessions. So in terms of, making commitment and sticking to it, you're not even seeing that right now. And we're being told that maybe in the background, there's some meetings happening, some groups coming together. In the meanwhile, we're ticking towards the start of that new fiscal year, and there's no budget in place.
As somebody who's in Springfield, so you're in this milieu, you talk to a lot of legislators, you have a sense of what's going on, you can read tea leaves. How does this play itself out, particularly with both sides engaged in sort of this game of brinkmanship, most particularly about money for schools so they open on time in the fall?
Absolutely. Well, I don't think any legislator wants to be tagged with the fact that their school didn't open up come August, September. So once we get closer to that date, I think you're going to see some Collier County Democrats start to say, okay, this is simply untenable. We've got to open up our schools. And you'll have, conservative legislators who are ready and willing to go along with that. So we get closer to that point. I think the pressure on them to say, no thanks, Mike Madigan. I'm done with the brinkmanship. I'm going to support a reasonable compromise to get our schools open. I think you see them start to break.
But you suspect that will be a stopgap budget, not a full fiscal year budget, constitutionally balanced fiscal year budget, more of a stopgap.
Yeah,
probably.
it might be a stopgap, but again, maybe they fully fund one thing like schools, right? And we have the same situation where we have right now, where other things like university and human services kind of just wait around. I think everyone would agree that schools are pretty important and they need to open this fall. And so it's worth asking, why is Mike Madigan holding this up? Last year, he sent the governor an education budget. Why isn't he doing it this year?